Honestly, I think it's absurd. It's just ridiculous to even think about the fact that Mike Norvell would be on the hot seat.
Week 6 of college football, and our game of the week is Miami at Florida State. So for Florida State and Miami, they're each the last ranked opponents currently on their schedules. So who needs this win more?
I think for me that Florida State really needs this win because they're just coming off a loss to Virginia. Uh, they got a lot to prove. They were in the game against UVA, but you can't lose to a team like that, or at least have a bad start against them. And they really need to bounce back if they want to continue to be in contention and at least also show you what the measuring stick is. So this is definitely a must win for Florida State.
Yeah, I agree with Peter only with the fact that I think Florida State needs to back up that Alabama win. And you lose on the road. It's not all that bad to lose on the road in double overtime in a conference game. But I think for the voters, for now in the future, the college football selection committee, I think they need to back up that Alabama win. And as far as Miami, there's nothing left after this. But we also saw last year when there was nothing left for Miami. Look what happened. They tanked at the end of the season. So this is important for Miami as well, I think, no doubt. And it's a huge rivalry game.
For Miami and Florida State, what are the keys to winning the game?
I think if you look at Miami, number one is you've got to contain Castellanos, because that's when Florida State gets dangerous. When that offense can be a little multiple and you can get Castellanos outside, that's a problem. You saw it in the Notre Dame game with CJ Carr. I think they got to be balanced on offense. They got to run the ball with Fletcher. They got to throw it smartly on off play action with Carson Beck, and they got to get pressure, but get pressure smartly with Bain and Mesidor. I think you got to be in a situation where you keep him contained.
For me, it's it's always going to start with the trenches either way. Whoever's going to win up front is the winner of the game, and that's pretty much why Florida State beat Alabama in the first place, because they dominated up front especially on the defensive line. So this is probably going to be the best offensive line they're going to face, with their offensive line led by the Marcus Magoa. I think that's how you say his name. So I'm interested to see if they can get to Carson Beck, because Carson Beck doesn't really have to do much but to be a gunslinger. So if they can get to him and get him out of the comfort zone, you might have a chance.
Going into the Miami game, what is Florida State coach Mike Norvell's hot seat status?
I don't think he's on a hot seat, at least not right now. I think they really love Mike Norvell and the things and all the moves that he made going into the season. They knew what happened at 2-10 was not supposed to happen. But because it did happen, he knows that he had to make the sudden change and have to adapt with the decisions that he has to make, like taking away his play calling duties and give it to Gus Malzahn, bringing in Tony White, taking and losing some of the guys that were with him from the beginning. He had to make a lot of sacrifices because he knows that his job is on the line, but he also knows that he needs to get this program back on track. And I think he's doing that. So I think that alone, and I'm confident enough that they're going to finish with a winning record, whether they make the playoff or not. But I think he should be safe for now.
Honestly, I think it's absurd. Truthfully, it's not just because they owe him $70 million in a cash-strapped athletic department, but it's because you're going to run off a guy that had an unbeaten season and not only would have went to the playoff had his quarterback not gotten hurt, but might have won it all that year. You're going to run him off because of one bad season? Not a chance in the world. I think he's proved he can coach there. He's proved he can build a roster there. I think this is just all fan-induced nuts who just, always want to fire the coach. No, it's just ridiculous to even think about the fact that Mike Norvell would be on the hot seat.
Miami at Florida State, who wins and why?
So I think it's going to be a very difficult spot for Miami. There's no doubt about it, because if Florida State can stop the run or at least contain Mark Fletcher and force Miami to be one-dimensional, then I think they've got a chance to get after Carson Beck and all quarterbacks. And I'm not just saying Carson Beck. All quarterbacks do not play well under pressure. So I think that's the key. But I think Miami's going to figure this thing out late in the game and get a late win in the fourth quarter.
I did like season prediction and had Miami beating Florida State going into the season. I think that for some reason, too, because the ACC is going to ACC, that it wouldn't surprise me if Florida State takes this victory. And I think that if they generate as many turnovers, I have a good feeling that this could be a rough game for Carson Beck going against that defense. And I think that Florida State is going to generate turnovers. If they can win the turnover battle, I think that Florida State is going to get the edge. So for now, give me Florida State.
Week 6 of college football, we're about a month into the season. So after the first few weeks, who is your Heisman Trophy pick now?
It really seems like this Heisman pick is as open as it has been in a long time. A week or two ago, I would have said Mateer from Oklahoma after the way he'd been playing, but now that he's injured, it really kind of shuffles the deck again. So I'm going with a wild card here, kind of. Give me Jeremiah Smith, who's been an absolute stud for Ohio State and has proven that he is the reason why this offense works as well as it does. 28 receptions, nearly 400 yards, 5 total touchdowns, and 14 yards per catch. This guy is a monster. I think as we get into more Big Ten play, we're going to see him become the Heisman standout that he really can be.
I'm going with another Big Ten player. For me, it's got to be Oregon quarterback Dante Moore. He's been playing so well this season, and especially after beating Penn State, he's got to be my Heisman frontrunner. He doesn't often run, but he can probably pick that up a little. But at this point, he's thrown 14 touchdowns this season. That's the third most in FBS play. He's completing almost 75% of his passes this season. He is electric. He is poised under pressure, especially for a redshirt sophomore, and he's got that strong offensive line to help him. I wondered if Oregon would lose a step maybe with a bit of turnover this season, but they are clearly one of the best teams, and Dante Moore is looking like a real strong Heisman candidate after the first few weeks of the season. What is your biggest disappointment and best surprise so far?
Biggest disappointment has to be UCLA. It's a team and a brand in the Big Ten that feels irrelevant, which for being a football powerhouse and for being in Los Angeles, that should never be the case. I mean, USC, which hasn't had a great season so far, looks light years ahead by comparison. Things have just totally fallen apart for UCLA and the Bruins. It might take a long time, not just a coach, but a full infrastructure rebuild before this is a program that can contend in the Big Ten. And by then, who knows what the college football landscape is going to look like. You really have to maximize as much as you can out of every year. Every year that sets you back, it might be 2 or 3 steps back. You can't just rebuild as easily overnight, even with the transfer portal, if you don't have all those internal systems built out. Biggest surprise, I'm going to stay in state and go with Cal and Justin Wilcox and what they are doing out there in Berkeley, beating Oregon State, beating Minnesota, beating Boston College on the road, where teams have notoriously struggled in the past. After losing their quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, to Indiana in the transfer portal, this is a team that has come back arguably stronger than ever and is a real threat in the ACC now.
My biggest disappointment has to be Clemson. This was expected to be one of Dabo Swinney's best teams, and so far it is decidedly not. On paper, the Tigers are experienced and should be in a position to claim the ACC title, but instead they're 1-3 and still looking for their first conference win. Defense is ranked 73rd nationally. Offense is 85th nationally. That's not winning the ACC, much less a national title. And my biggest surprise at this point is Indiana and Fernando Mendoza. It turns out that Kirk Cernetti's team is clearly here to stay, and maybe that playoff appearance last year was not a fluke for the Hoosiers. And Fernando Mendoza is playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the country, completing 73% of his passes. The Hoosiers are undefeated right now, but they do have 2 big games coming up against Oregon and then Penn State later in the season. But even if Indiana can split those 2 games, it's looking pretty good.